For the last 15 years of his life, Leonardo da Vinci traveled continuously, searching for a patron. In 1508, Leonardo returned to Milan, home of the Sforzas, which had been conquered by Louis XII and was now occupied by the French.
The first meeting between Leonardo da Vinci and the French was during a campaign in Italy, Louis XII's first Italian campaign, in which Milan was conquered. Louis XII went into Milan, and the first thing he asked to see was the famous Last Supper painted by Leonardo da Vinci at the Holy Mary of Grace convent. King Louis XII was fascinated by the painting and wanted to bring it back to France. The convent prior had a terrible time dissuading him, but he told him, "Sire, if you do, you'll only be bringing back pieces."
Before he returned to France, Louis XII named Leonardo da Vinci first engineer and architect to the king. The artist entered the service of Charles d'Amboise, who had replaced Ludovic Sforza. But 3 years later, in 1511, the French were chased from Milan. Leonardo da Vinci lost his protector, Charles d'Amboise. This was the start of years of uncertainty and travel for the Tuscan painter, yet again looking for a benefactor. The first one was Giuliano de' Medici. Pope Leon X's brother summoned Leonardo to Rome in 1513. While Raphael and Michelangelo were at the height of their glory, Leonardo was left on the sidelines. Bitter, he wrote in his notebooks, "The Medicis created me, and the Medicis destroyed me." In 1516, the artist set off on what would be his last journey. At 64, he crossed the Alps on the back of a mule, carrying his most precious possessions, his notebooks, and 3 of his paintings, the Mona Lisa, the St. Anne, and the St. John the Baptist. The young King of France, Francis I, invited him to live in Amboise. It was here, in the Clos Lucé Chateau, not far from Francis I's chateau, that Leonardo da Vinci spent the last 3 years of his life in the company of his faithful companion Giovanni Francesco Melzi.
It was a golden exile for Leonardo. As a show of affection, Francis I gave him a chateau just 500 meters from the royal palace, the Clos Lucé, as he called it, the Palazzo del Clou, with rolling hills, a small river that ran into the Loire, foliage and vines. It was a marvelous place. A surprising relationship developed between this young 22-year-old king and this great artist. Francis I considered Leonardo to be an important scholar, a great scientist, and a magnificent artist, but also as a mentor. And when Francis I was in Amboise, not one day went by when he did not go to see Leonardo. At the Clos Lucé, contrary to what one might think, Leonardo remained extremely active. He worked on his projects and royal commissions.
And crucially, he also has a number of his paintings, the most famous of which, not famous then, famous now, but maybe his most beloved painting, of course, the Mona Lisa, working on it sporadically, and I think very passionately, for about a dozen years at that time. He started it in about 1503.
The Mona Lisa, the St. John the Baptist, and the St. Anne, but no sign of a self-portrait. A document was found that mentions the existence of a self-portrait of Leonardo da Vinci in Vaprio d'Adda, the villa of the family of Giovanni Francesco Melzi, whom the artist had met in Milan.
Leonardo da Vinci probably never took this portrait with him. This is a hypothesis. He may have left it in Vaprio d'Adda during his visits with his favorite student in the Medici villa.
But how can we explain the discovery of the Lucan portrait in the south of Italy, nearly 900 kilometers from Vaprio d'Adda? The answer may be found in Naples. Nicola Barbatelli went to the Vittorio Emanuele National Library to do some research. The professor discovered a document written by Domenico Romanelli, an 18th century historian.
Domenico Romanelli provided information on several of Leonardo's paintings that were part of 3 collections in Naples. In one of these collections, owned by the Ruffi da Baranello family and housed in their palace on Sidronia Street in Naples, was a self-portrait of Leonardo. The exact description was literally a portrait of Leonardo done by his own hand. We can most probably link this painting to the portrait found in Salerno, which would also explain its travels in the Lucan region. And it's highly likely that the paintings are one and the same, because we know that the Ruffo da Baranello possessed several fiefs in Lucan.
The incredible resemblance between the Lucan portrait and the Uffizi painting still needs to be clarified. For several centuries, this portrait was considered to be the only self-portrait painted by Leonardo da Vinci. Today, we know it was a fake. Was the Lucan portrait the original?
This painting in the Uffizi, it couldn't be made if there was not a copy, another painting, which he could copy.
There are many reasons to believe that the Florence painting was, how should I say, a bit of a fraud. Well, not just a bit. In fact, because the person who had the original painting perhaps didn't want to give it away. So this person organized a sale, or rather, this swindle in Florence. He then made a copy which, in a joke on history, became Leonardo da Vinci's official self-portrait from then on.
During the last 3 years of his life in the Clos Lucé, Leonardo da Vinci asked Giovanni Francesco Melzi to help organize his notebooks. He intended to write several treatises on the various subjects he had studied throughout his life. But the task was immense, and the artist didn't get a chance to see it through.
It's very sad to contemplate Leonardo da Vinci in the spring of 1519 as he lay dying on his bed, because of the fact that he, I think, believed that everything he had done was either going to be lost or was going to be unnoticed. And one of the last things that he writes in his notebooks is, "Tell me if I ever did a thing." And it's very sad to contemplate that he felt he had not done everything that he could have done, and that as he lay dying and as he died, his work was going to be forgotten, and the waters of history were going to close over his head.
Leonardo died on May the 2nd, 1519, in Clou. He wanted his remains carried by 30 beggars carrying torches to the St. Florentine Church in the Royal Chapel of Amboise, where he was buried.
The story is fascinating because 5 centuries later, Leonardo has allowed himself to be discovered. It isn't us who quote-unquote recovered a painting potentially done by Leonardo. No, it's Leonardo who, after 5 centuries, decided to come out of the shadows.
It's not a fingerprint, it's not a signage, it's not, but it's what is represented, what is the technique of representation, and there we have one painter who did something strange like this. This is Leonardo. This, for me personally, makes it convincing.
Leonardo da Vinci's physical appearance has remained an enigma for centuries. The investigation into the Lucan portrait suggests that it might be an authentic self-portrait of the artist. 500 years after Leonardo's death, this incredible discovery offers us a glimpse of his face, lifting the veil on one of art history's greatest mysteries.